Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from the Black Business School, and I wanted to take 1 second to share some thoughts about something that I just saw in terms of a recent scandal with Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins is a well-known, well-respected motivational speaker. He's known all around the world. He's been doing this for probably 35 years, something like that. He's been in the game for a long time, and he's considered to be one of the best in the game. If you might recall, Tony Robbins was hit pretty hard with some reports in Buzzfeed claiming that he was abusive to women, or that he'd berated a rape victim, that he'd harassed women in the past, things like that. And it was kind of a messy story in the sense that it didn't have a lot of credibility with me, honestly. Not because I don't think that it's impossible that he's done something that he shouldn't have done, but I think that when you have a person that's been around for 30, 40 years, and you have to literally go back to 1990 to find stories, to find somebody who will say something bad about that person. Like, some of the stories literally went all the way back to 1990. I think that really says that you're stretching, you're reaching, because when you talk about Tony Robbins, you're talking about a guy who's met I don't know about if he's met a million people, but at least tens of thousands of people throughout his career. And if all you can find is maybe two or three, and you got to go all the way back to 1990, that kind of says something, right? That says, and then also when there's no proof, when it's just, what somebody says, you got to be careful about that, because, it's kind of just a dangerous game you're playing. You're not really getting, you're sort of deviating from American principles of innocent till proven guilty, due process, fairness, equity, justice, things like that. And I think that it also, unfortunately, they actually proved Tony Robbins' point. Tony Robbins, I think, was one of the critics of the Me Too movement, and he talked about how basically, it's just kind of this free for all, where women aren't really being held accountable for their behavior in the Me Too movement. It's really all about men, and I kind of knew Tony Robbins would be under attack because he's a powerful man. And pretty much every powerful man is sort of being convicted for having sex. Like, if you've ever had sex with anybody, let alone a coworker, then as a man you're going to get in trouble. No one will hold women accountable for having sex with coworkers, but I guess because I don't know if they think women are children and they can't make decisions for themselves. But personally, last time I checked, when two people have sex, the man and the woman both decide to do it. It's not just the man saying, hitting her over the head like a caveman with a club and dragging her by her hair to the bedroom. No, usually it's two people who are attracted to each other, and they get together and they do what lovers do, right? Which, that's actually been happening for tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years. So, no reason to be alarmed. But anyway, the point with that, with all this, the reason I'm bringing all this up is because Tony Robbins fought back pretty hard. In fact, he had testimonies from a lot of the people that they were saying, had said that he had done this and done that, and some of those actual people cited in the story were like, no, Tony gave me tough love. He did yell at me, but it made me better. It helped me. It helped me. Now, I know we like to water that down. We like to weigh that down when a woman, speaks or has an opinion that is different from from what the status quo tells her to say or to believe. But I grew up in a household with strong women, my mother, my grandmother, my sister, etc. And I've kind of always felt that, yeah, if a woman speaks, you listen to her, you respect her voice as if you would a man. And I think BuzzFeed was trying to discount this, like, oh, no, you were really abused, you just don't know you were abused, or no, he really did harass you, you just don't know you were harassed. No, I think people know when they were harassed. I think they know when they felt abused. I think they know when they went through something that made them uncomfortable. And so Tony Robbins fought back pretty hard. BuzzFeed came back with another report. And it was, and it's interesting because, these sort of takedown situations. And again, I'm not sitting here trying to say Tony Robbins is totally innocent. I'm trying to say that he's not been proven guilty of anything, right? There's no proof that he really did bad things to anybody. And I think you got to know the difference. What I'm noticing is that with these takedown pieces, it's kind of becoming this very lynch mob kind of environment that we operate in, that we live in, and it's affecting the business climate in terms of the ability or the freedom of men, or especially to build businesses or to build brands. This constant fear or this terrorism that, of sort of knowing that, okay, if there's one person I've ever slept with who's mad at me, they can come out and say, oh, he's an abuser. And people will say, yeah, girl, go get him. Let's take him down. He's an abuser, right? Or, oh, he touched my butt in 1992. And oh my God, he's just as bad as a rapist. That's not a rapist. That's not the same thing. It's not that it's okay, but that's not what a rapist and someone who touches your butt or says something inappropriate, those are two different sides of the spectrum. And I think that we got to make sure we have that dividing line out there in terms of doing business the right way. Now, let me say this also about Tony Robbins, though, that's really fascinating to me. I went and I did a Google search on this story because I was keeping up with it. I was kind of like, oh wow, how's this going? Buzzfeed lobs a bomb at Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins lobs a bomb back. Buzzfeed lobs another bomb. Tony Robbins hits back. And then I looked back and I noticed that in the last couple of weeks, nothing's been written. It's over. It's done. It's like it blew up and now it's blown away. There was a report where they were claiming that Simon & Schuster cut Tony Robbins' book deal or something like that. And I think that they wrote that report to kind of say, haha, see, he's being taken down. He's no longer popular. He's not a cool kid anymore. We got him, right? And it's fascinating because, first of all, Tony Robbins doesn't need Simon & Schuster. Right? Tony Robbins is probably a billionaire or very close to it, or on his way to being a billionaire. His company's probably worth over $1 billion. So he doesn't really need Simon & Schuster's money, I would imagine. I imagine he's going to be okay. Tony Robbins could release a book tomorrow, self-publish that book, and it would be a bestseller because he's got such a strong business model. So Tony Robbins doesn't need Simon & Schuster. What I'm really seeing in terms of what's really kind of going on with that is I think BuzzFeed got their little victory. Like, haha, we attacked you in public. We did a takedown and we got our little win. And actually that works in Tony Robbins' favor. I believe that they're going to walk away now saying, haha, we got him. Because right now that's what it is. It's sort of the Me Too anger. Like we're going to just go get powerful men who've ever had sex, and we're going to shame them for sex that they may have had, right? Like Tony Robbins has been rich a long time. He's a big, tall, alpha male, very strong, very, masculine. Women love that. He's probably had women hit on him every single day of his life. He's probably had sex with some of those women because that's what is supposed to happen. I mean, men and women are supposed to have sex. So, I think that their decision to try to, shame him for whatever personal life he might have had, it's one of those things where obviously it's not fair. It's not right. It really feeds into what I've always theorized in terms of a gender war. I believe there's a gender war in America between men and women. And I think that this gender war is unhealthy. I'm glad to be African American, where I'm not really a part of that gender war as much. We got black men and black women kind of going at it, but it's not at the same level as I see in the broader white community right now with Me Too and all that. A lot of the black people I roll with, they kind of see right through their nonsense. They believe in protecting victims from potential predators, but they also believe in fairness and justice and equity, which is not something that's really true in the Me Too movement. The Me Too movement is about due process. It's not about facts. It's not about proof. It's not about fairness. Because if it were about fairness, then you'd be taking down women as almost as frequently as you take down men. Like, you would also say, well, what are some things that women are doing that are harmful to men? And I think one of the best examples was the Cardi B situation. Cardi B admitted that she used to drug men and set them up to be raped by transvestites and rob them and steal their money. And there were people who were still saying, well, that's not as bad as what Bill Cosby did. But the thing is, they still can't prove what Bill Cosby did. But at the same time, there were witnesses with Bill Cosby, but Cardi B made a confession. Like, it came right out of her mouth. Cosby never confessed to doing any of those things. I think, in fact, they took one of the things that he allegedly confessed to and they stretched the truth. Like, I think that they asked him, have you ever given women drugs for the purposes of sex? And he said yes, but they took that to mean that he gave them drugs against their will. He never said that. Many of the women that Cosby spent time with were drug addicts, so they probably asked him for those drugs. But that's just a little fact that they conveniently overlook because it doesn't fit their agenda. So I'm not a big fan of agenda-driven logic, which is illogical actually, in its core. I think that fairness and facts and proof and evidence still matter. I think that when it comes to Tony Robbins, let's go specific to that in terms of this being a business lesson. I think it kind of shows that in this current climate, it's built on a lot of this emotional energy and this outrage, and some of it's justified. I mean, because for a long time, women have not been treated fairly. We know that sexual assault victims have been ignored for way too long. We know that there are things that have to be fixed in that process, in that system. This isn't quite the right way, but then again, that's what happens. You do a bunch of screwed up stuff, you get a screwed up response, and this is a screwed up response. But I think also from a business standpoint, what I see here is that this energy, it's kind of like it's internet energy. The internet is built on short attention spans. So what happens is you'll see something that'll blow up, and then it'll just go away. And then if you get trapped in the moment, you can think that that one moment is gonna last forever, right? Like I think Simon and Schuster made a mistake when they dropped Tony Robbins' book. I mean, you ended what was probably going to be a long-term business relationship over a short-term flare-up in media. Again, I did the research, and it looks like this story's dead. Like now, it's kind of old news. Like now, you write a story about it. Maybe you get some new allegations or whatever, but you can't write another story saying, "Oh, well, Tony Robbins has been accused of this or accused of that." By the way, he hasn't been accused of anything heavy like like assault or anything like that. It's things like he had an assistant where somebody found out that he would talk to her in the nude, right? And the assistant herself was like, so what? Like, I didn't care. Like, it wasn't a big deal to me. Like, and you never know. For all we know, they could have been having sex. Like, it happens. People sleep with coworkers. I'm not saying it's right. It just happens, right? So even she was like, what are you doing? Like, this is not even, I'm not a victim. Stop making me a victim. I'm not a victim, right? So I personally didn't think it was a big deal. And I think also the fact that it just blew over so quickly and so easily kind of tells you how these things operate, And I think that with Tony Robbins, I think that what his team has probably decided to do from a strategic standpoint is they just said, you know what? We're not going to respond anymore. Just let the chips fall where they may. It's over. It's gone. We're going to move on. He's still doing these events. Thousands of people are showing up. I mean, this man, I think, can get like 5,000 people in an arena, and all these people are paying like $5,000 to be there. It's something ridiculously insane. Like I'm just sitting here thinking, holy crap, this dude is making millions of dollars every time he goes and does an event. And so Tony, and I don't think that's going to change. I think Tony Robbins is always going to have his power. And as much as it might be, their wet dream to take him down and see him, buried and bloody in the ground, I don't know if they're going to be able to do that. And that actually makes me happy in the sense that it shows that there are still people that have enough common sense to say, that's not interesting. Let's go after real predators. Let's go after again, like for example, I didn't have a big issue with the R. Kelly takedown because R. Kelly, he's done a lot of stuff he shouldn't have done. He's a mentally ill man, etc. And I think that there is a racial tendency to take down black men before you take down anybody else. Because again, there's nothing R. Kelly has done that Elvis Presley did not do. Elvis Presley was just as bad as R. Kelly, but there's not a rush to take down Elvis Presley. And so I think that, but at the same time, I think that when you're talking about true predators, that's very different from somebody who just maybe asked a woman out on a date 3 or 4 times, or maybe, he did get drunk and, say something inappropriate or whatever. Women are not broken, busted up little powder puffs. They're not little wimpy, little weak little creatures. Real women kind of know how to say, look, hey, slow down. Like, I know you like me, I appreciate it, but I don't want this anymore. And so I think that we have to just kind of know the difference. So long story short, I think from a business standpoint, Tony Robbins is going to be fine. I think that men who are watching, who are going into business, be very thoughtful about the relationships you have. Just know that every time you open yourself up to a sexual relationship, which you're going to have sex, you're never going to stop human beings from having sex. Every time you open yourself up to have a relationship with a woman or a man, it's okay. Whatever you do is what you do. I don't really care. Just know that you need to be able to trust that person. You need to ask yourself, if this does not work out, if I decide I don't want to date this woman anymore, or I have to fire her, is she a person that's going to feel vindictive enough to use her power against me and assault me? Because what you're really seeing in some situations are a type of assault, a type of female assault, where you might have, like if you look at the Bill Cosby situation, for example, some of the women, some of them were interesting. Like they actually, for many decades, bragged to their friends about the fact that they knew Bill Cosby. They would go visit him quite frequently. They would call him on a regular basis for money. And when the money stopped, then for some of them suddenly it became, oh yeah, I'm a victim too, right? And so, for a man who decides to have those relationships, just be careful. You can't, like Belle Biv DeVoe said, you can't never trust a big butt and a smile. You got to make sure that you know what you're walking into and that you are selective about who you allow into your personal space, because, pretty much any accusation against a man, especially a black man, is usually going to be believed. People are going to believe it no matter what. That's why Albert Wilson's in prison right now. If you go to check out freealbertwilson.com, freealbertwilson.com, you can learn about his case. 12 years in prison, spent 5 minutes with this lady, never had sex with her. He kissed her and she wanted to have sex with him, but he got 12 years in prison somehow, and they still haven't been able to fully explain why. So anyway, that's it. I'm going to go, guys. So this is kind of a business and life lesson, but if you haven't noticed this yet, business and life are really kind of the same thing. They're kind of smack dab connected to each other, so you can't talk about one without the other. So I'm out of here, guys. Take care. Have a good day. Hit the thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button. If you want a free e-copy of my book, It Takes a Village to Raise the Bar, please go to drboycewatkins.net. That's drboycewatkins.net. I'm full of all kinds of supportive information and updates, advice, all kinds of things. So join the tribe. You will be smarter when we're done. So I'll talk to you later. Have a good day. Peace.